Menopause is an area that is not touched upon a lot. And, it's critical that we have these conversations and we start having them soon so that as women, we can start, making the right decisions about our bodies, for ourselves, and, for our families, because whatever we do, impacts people around us. Whether you're a mother, wife, sister, friend, it affects everyone around us. So thank you for coming here, and we look forward to engaging with you further. So I will actually, yield the floor or open it up for our guest speaker to also, come in here. We have an amazing program lined up. She's going to take us through, different aspects of menopause, where we are as women, what the different types are, what we should be expecting, the kinds of foods that we should be eating, lifestyle changes, and all. So I think that I was going to read her bio, but I'm like, no, this is an interactive session. So Dr. Gold, I'm going to open it up for you. Let's talk. Please share a bit about yourself, who you are, and what you're hoping to, to leave behind for all of us, because we're all eager and ready to, grab all of the information that we can get from you. And thank you so much for making time to, have a chat with us. So over to you, Dr. Gold.
Thank you so much for having me here, Abena. My name is Gold, Dr. Gold, as most people would like to call me. Right. And most people would ask, is that in your birth certificate? Yes, it's on my birth certificate. So my name is Gold, a family physician, and women's health is something I'm quite passionate about. I've had the opportunity to have conversations with women, to see women every day in my clinic, right, and to organize outreaches that particularly speak to women. So this is something that really comes close to home. I have a mom who is currently in menopause, and we have this conversation and all of that. So I'm hoping that we get something that we can go out with, and when the time comes, right, we're able to pull through menopause victoriously and triumphantly, because it's a period where it's something every woman who lives up to that point is going to pass through. If you don't mind, I would like to share my screen. So I will be going through, talk about menopause in general, understanding what menopause is, the medical and lifestyle management of menopause, the role of preventive care, so things we can do to help manage that period, myths, and then we'll also talk about reclaiming our narratives as women. So menopause, as we know, is a period in a woman's life that is most often misunderstood and most times kept silent, right? But it marks the transition of a woman's life. So usually in the life of a woman, there are two biological milestones that are quite significant. There's the menarche and there's the menopause. So menarche deals with the onset of menstruation. So that's the beginning of the reproductive cycle, right? So when a woman starts seeing her menses, while menopause marks the end of it, right? So for every woman, it's important for us to understand that every woman's experience is unique. And these experiences are influenced by our lifestyle choices, environmental factors, genes, right? So it's not a one size fits all for everyone. So it's important that we get useful information for that period of time. For menopause, it's not a disease. So it's not something that is treatable. It's not a disease. It's a natural biological process. It signals the end of the reproductive years where a woman can no longer get pregnant or bear children, right? And there are three different stages that occur when a woman is going into menopause. So there's the perimenopausal period, which is the transition phase from just before menopause starts until after menopause. And then there's the menopause phase and the postmenopausal phase. So the perimenopausal phase, we refer to it as the hormonal roller coaster phase. It usually starts around late 30s and can last for up to 10 years. So in this period, the hormones are gradually declining. The ovarian function is also declining, right? And pregnancy is still quite possible, right? But the chances are slim. So here, most women would experience either longer or shorter periods, heavier or lighter periods. It could be more sporadic. It all depends. They could have intramenstrual bleeding. It's a normal process, right, that they go through. Then menopause, we would always say in medicine that menopause is what we refer to as a retrospective diagnosis. So it's something that we understand in hindsight. Hindsight because that diagnosis is only made after 12 months of consecutive absence of periods. So if a woman stops seeing her period for the next, let's say she's going into menopause and she doesn't see her period for 6 months and then she sees it again, we can't count that as menopause. That still falls under the perimenopausal period. But as long as a woman has not seen her period for at least 12 months, right, 12 consecutive months, then we will see that she has gone into menopause, right? And in this period, there is a significant drop in hormones. So the women start experiencing different symptoms. There's vaginal dryness, there's urinary issues, emotional and mental issues, anxiety, depression. A friend of mine would say that she has brain fog. Whenever she has this block in her brain, she's like, I'm having an older adult moment, right? So that comes in at that point because of the drops in our hormones. Then the post-menopause, this phase starts after the 12 months period, the 12 months of cessation of menses. So that's when the post-menopause now comes into play. And here there is now an increased risk of certain illnesses like osteoporosis, which is a decline in the bone strength. So because estrogen is very important in having bone health, seeing that estrogen is now depleted in menopause, then the woman is now at risk of developing osteoporosis due to bone loss. Estrogen is also quite effective in protecting the heart, right? So it has some protective effect on the blood vessels and all. And seeing that estrogen is then dropped, there's now the risk of cardiovascular issues, and there's also fat redistribution. That's why most postmenopausal women have truncal or abdominal obesity because fat then redistributes to those areas, right? So there are several symptoms that could come up when women have going through perimenopausal up to menopause. So that we can have recurrent headaches, dizziness, poor memory, depression, anxiety. Some have reduction in libido, vaginal dryness, or pain on intercourse. There could also be what we refer to as hot flushes. People feel, I see women who come in and say, I'm so hot. Every time it's a hot, I'm sweating at night. Or tingling sensations, where they're just those crawling sensations over the body. And most women find it difficult understanding what is going on. So they feel that there is something more to it. It's actually menopause. Most of these things can be tied to menopause. So how do we manage menopause? I had said initially that it's not a disease, right? But it's a natural biological process. So health education is key. And that's why I appreciate what we're doing here, having to educate women on what menopause is. We say when we educate a woman, we educate a nation, because I believe everyone here is going to take home something and educate the next person that she sees about it. So health education is important. You have to be able to have proper information for you to be able to make sound decisions, right? And then there is what we refer to as hormone replacement therapy and also non-hormonal therapies. It's important to know that menopause cannot be prevented. I did mention that we'll take a look at preventive steps, but they're not preventive steps for menopause. Menopause is something that every woman is going to go through. So it's a natural process, it's unavoidable, it's what God has created it to be. So with regards to the lifestyle changes, or before we go to the lifestyle changes, let's discuss the hormone replacement therapy, which is something that most women would some women would want to take into play. However, it's not a decision that is made in isolation. It's a decision that is made with your doctor, and it all depends on the severity of the symptoms that the person in question is going through. The benefits and the risks are usually weighed, right, for women. The reason being because there are negative side effects to having to replace these hormones that should have at this point naturally gone away. So there is a risk of ovarian cancers and uterine cancers for women who still have their uterus in place, especially when it is used prolonged periods. So these hormone replacement therapies can be either oral or what we call transdermal, where there's a patch. It could also be for vaginal suppositories. So it all depends on what type that is being made use of. So when hormone replacement therapy is being used, it helps to alleviate all those symptoms that we have talked about. It protects against fractures, that's against osteoporosis. However, it's important to know that osteoporosis is not an indication for hormone replacement therapy. So because you want to prevent osteoporosis doesn't mean that shouldn't be, that is not the only reason why hormone replacement therapy should be taken in or should be considered. Then there's also reduction in the risk of colorectal cancers. Hormone replacement therapy has a way to reduce the risk, not that it completely removes it. And then it also improves the general well-being because those hormones are now back in place and they are stable, right? But then there are risks associated with hormone replacement therapy. So that's why I said it has to be balanced. So there is the risk of breast cancer. And breast cancers here, when they come for people who use hormone replacement therapies, they're usually large and quite metastatic, so they can spread faster than those who are not on hormone replacement therapy. There's also the risk of uterine cancers for those who still have their uterus. And then there's also the risk of what we refer to as there's increased risk of ischemic heart disease, especially for women who have um, high cholesterol levels, right? There's also the risk of deep venous thrombosis, where there are blood clots in the veins and urinary incontinence and all of that. And then there's also withdrawal bleeding after stopping hormone replacement therapy. So it's a lot to balance. That's why that conversation has to be had with the woman in question and the doctor. So for the non-hormonal therapies that can be explored are things like antidepressants that can be used for those crawling sensations and all of that. We could also use over-the-counter vaginal lubricants. This should help in the vaginal dryness that is there. Then there are also what we refer to as selective estrogen receptor modulators that help to mimic um, estrogen replacement. There are also other complementary and alternative medications like ginsomine, evening primos, or ginsomine that helps. So studies have shown that it's been helpful to curtail most of these symptoms in some women, right? So that being said, the more practical tips here would be lifestyle changes that we can take into place. So cessation of smoking. For anybody who smokes, smoking is a risk factor for several illnesses, and it could also worsen or increase the risk of all those symptoms relating to menopause. So quitting smoking would help reduce the hot flushes. It will help reduce the risk of cardiovascular illnesses that could come up. Then exercise. The World Health Organization says that have postulated that we should do about 150 minutes of exercise, moderate intensity exercise in a week, which amounts to about 30 minutes in a day, right? So aerobic exercises. For those who have not exercised before, I would always say start small. There's progression in exercise. Start small, and with time, you're able to build capacity to take up to 30 minutes a day. So start with brisk walking. For younger ones who can still jump around, you can do some form of skipping ropes or jumping jacks again and stuff like that. So aerobic exercises are quite helpful. That would also help in maintaining your weight if you need to lose some weight at that point. Reduce alcohol. Well, we say reduce alcohol, but ideally right now what we preach is complete cessation of alcohol, right? So another thing that is very important, lifestyle change, that most women tend to overlook because some women feel they are superhuman, right? And they can run through is sleep. Sleep is very important for anybody, be it a baby or be it an adult, right? So you would ask, well, whenever I try to sleep, menopause tends to, those menopausal symptoms tend to affect how we sleep. But then if you have been able to build a proper sleep routine prior to the perimenopausal period, and it's something you are consistent with, then it's going to be a bit difficult for those symptoms to fight you at that point, because this is something your body is already used to. So sleep is very important. At least 8 hours of sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period, right? That is what is advised. And then relaxation techniques. So meditation, for people who are Christians, I would always say meditate on the scriptures. Again, meditate on the word of God, relax, hang out with friends. For those who are retired, pick up something doing gardening, those who garden. So you gardening or join a book club, or stuff like that. So have all those conversations. You could go around and talk to people and educate people on menopause and others on other topics as well regarding womanhood. When it comes to relaxing, people teach yoga. I tell people their relaxing techniques. So deep breathing exercises where you take a deep breath for about 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you release for 4 seconds. It's a bit difficult. Say it's someone tells me it's easier said than done, but then it takes about 21 days for you to actually build a habit. So for you to do all of this is something you have to be consistent with. And at a point in time, your body gets used to doing this. Then there is a healthy diet. So we no longer preach a balanced diet. What we preach is a healthy diet where we focus on having to eat whole foods, fruits, plant-based fruits, vegetables, and all of that. So when we're talking about diet, which is one of the most important aspects of lifestyle modifications, so for people who want to lose weight or maintain weight, diet is important. Moderation is key in whatever it is that we are doing. There is no food that is bad, and there is no food that is too good. So anything taken in excess, then there is a problem. So you might say, okay, I'm taking purpose or guava, and you're taking 10, 10 guavas at a time or 10 apples at a time, then that is now a problem. Okay, so anything that is taken in excess is an issue. So everything we do is in moderation. So for what we refer to as my healthy plate, how do you build your plate for this diet that I'm talking about? So there are different classes of food. We have the carbohydrates, the proteins, we have fruits and vegetables, and we have oil, the fats and the oil. So I live in Lagos, I'm Nigerian, and most of the foods we make have oil in it already. We cook with oil. So I would rarely tell people to add more oil to their diet because you shouldn't even have that amount of oil. Rather, we are trying to preach less oil, right, in the diet. So for 50% of your plate should have your fruits and vegetables. So vegetables here, things like what we refer to here as F4 or the African spinach, okra, ugu leaves, afang, cocoyam leaves, ademe, okra. These are very important greens that we can find. Carrots, cabbage, they are quite affordable, right? And they help add bulk to our diet. They also have enough fiber to help with having to pass easy stool at the end of the day. Then for the carbs, so almost every other thing falls under carbohydrates, from beans to rice. Rice is a staple. It's not on my list here, but it's a staple. Every family, almost everybody eats rice. It's the most eaten food in the world, right? So any form of rice, really. Beans, cocoyam, cassava, amala, all of that, pasta, other tubers like potatoes, they all fall under carbohydrates, right? So usually this is 25% of your plate. So your full plate, you divide into two. That's 50% for the vegetables and fruits. And the other one, you divide into two, 25% for carbohydrate, the other 25% for protein. So if you notice here, the proteins, I didn't put any form of red meat. So the macros here would cover for every form of seafood. So seafood ranging from shrimp to fish to crayfish, prawns and the likes, scallops and all of that. So they fall under protein. So you can get your proteins from there. You could get it from poultry. So chicken, chicken, turkey, eggs, right? So white meats, and then nuts. So we have nuts like groundnuts, cashew nuts. There are other little seeds like chia seeds, and there are some mixed seeds and all of that that are helpful in providing protein. Plant-based seeds are helping providing protein as well, right? So, and then our fruits are very important for our diet. So, with regards to red meats, for anyone 40 and above, I really wouldn't recommend red meat. It has it increases the risk of cardiovascular issues, especially in people who already have a family history. So red meat is usually a no-no from that age. So that's why it's not on my list here. Yes, for the younger children, younger adults, why not? You can do red meat. So with regards to preventive care, so the preventive care we're talking about here now borders around mitigating long-term risk that can complicate the menopause or post-menopause period. So the well woman examinations are very important. I always preach that every woman should have an annual health check. It's not something that should be put on the back burner. So annual health checks are very important. If you don't have a blood pressure machine, please do get one. Blood pressure, high blood pressure is referred to as the silent killer because it doesn't have any signs and symptoms. It just can be there, especially if you have a family history of high blood pressure. It's important to check this on a regular basis. We want to get our cholesterol checked as well every year. So we'll do what is called a lipid panel, lipid profile, where they check the various aspects of the cholesterol, the good, the bad, the triglycerides, and the likes. Glucose as well to help monitor and check for diabetes. And then there are other important examinations that should be done that are specific for women. We have what is referred to as the papanicular smear, most popularly known as the pap smear, which is done every 3 to 5 years. What this does is that it helps to detect the virus or detects the possibility of cervical cancer. So it's something that is preventable. Cervical cancer is a cancer that is preventable when vaccines are being taken earlier on. But for women who are already closer to the menopause, postmenopausal period or perimenopausal, you're not taking the vaccines anymore. So pap smears are very important. If you're doing it every 3 years, it's just the pap smear. If you're going to do it every 5 years, then you should have an annual what we refer to as HPV testing done alongside. Then the DEXA scan. DEXA scans are done to check the bone mineral density. Remember we talked about that when estrogen depletes, bone loss also occurs because estrogen helps in maintaining bone health. So these scans help us to check how strong the bone is. So from women 60 to 65 and above, it's important that the DEXA scan is being done every year. And then there are now managements that can be given if a woman finds herself having osteoporosis. Mammogram is another very important annual health screening that should be done for women 40 years and above, right? It helps to detect any form of masses or inconsistencies with the breast, and that can now be handled appropriately and on time. So with regards to menopause, myths abound. There are a whole lot of myths surrounding not just Nigeria, but the African community. And menopause is a period that is usually covered up in some form of misconception, some form of stigma, silence. Most people don't want to talk about it. Women don't want to have those conversations because they feel that it's something that should be shrouded in silence, right? Some people see it as a disease of entrapment, but it's not a disease, right? People feel that when I get to that period, I'm no longer as feminine as I should be. But that is the period where you should embrace your femininity. Yes, fertility reduces, fertility may not happen again or cannot naturally happen again at that point. Doesn't mean that femininity should be lost, right? So, what are the myths that abound with regards to menopause or the perimenopausal period? Some say that menopause can cause inevitable weight gain. Well, while weight gain can occur in women who go into menopause, it's often due to lifestyle choices and aging. So aging, yes, brings about weight gain, not necessarily the menopause on its own alone. And then our lifestyle choices as well. But for us to be able to maintain a healthy weight, it's important that we exercise and it's important that we manage our diet. Remember, for the diet, I said moderation is key. So you have to be careful. There's nothing like a 3 square meal. As far as I'm concerned, 3 square meal is a myth. So a three can't make a square, right? So you eat what is necessary. You can eat twice a day, once a day, whatever it is that suits you well, right? But try not to go a whole lot on your calories. There are several apps that can help calculate how many calories someone can take depending on your weight at a particular time. And there are many foods. That's why we have a lot of vegetables in our meals. That would help, like I said, build bulk if you really need to eat that. And they're not calorie dense, so they're quite low on calories, right? Then there's also a myth that symptoms must be put up with. Why? Symptoms don't have to be put up with. You can live through it, you can walk through it, but it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it, right? For people who have severe symptoms, they can be managed, or even moderate symptoms. Your lifestyle changes can help. Right? We talked about diet, exercise, meditation, relaxing techniques. Um, if you haven't ever gone to the spa before, pick it up as a hobby. If you can go to the spa once in a while, get a pedicure, just take a me time out you get during this period. You can walk through it. You don't have to suffer through the symptoms that come up. Then there's also hormone replacement therapy is always dangerous. Well, not really. We've already spoken about the risk and the benefits. It improves the well-being, right? It could also be quite effective if it is prescribed correctly. And so that conversation is being had, like I said, with your healthcare professional. Then menopause ends a woman's sexuality. Well, sexual health can remain positive and open continuously. It all depends on communication with your partner. I mentioned the use of over-the-counter lubricants that can help in lubricating the vagina due to the dryness that occurs from menopause, right? And be open about it, have conversations about this. You can form a group wherever you are, right? A perimenopausal group or women's group or older women's group. And these are conversations that you can have. You can learn from another person's experience. I would always tell women I meet, it's good to learn from experience, especially other people's experience. It's going to help you go through that period, right, when you get there. And then you can get pregnant during perimenopause. Well, pregnancy is possible. So you can't get pregnant during perimenopause. It is possible during the perimenopausal. Remember, I mentioned that during that late 30s to early 40s and all, hormones have dropped. The chances of getting pregnant reduces, but pregnancy can still occur, right? But when a woman has officially reached menopause, then ovulation ceases. And once ovulation ceases, pregnancy can no longer occur. But during the perimenopausal period, please, pregnancy can occur, right? So that's that. Therefore, menopause is the same for everyone. No, it's not a one size fits all. The timings are usually different. I've had people who have gone into menopause at 40. I've had people who have gone in at 49. I've had people who have gone in at 55. It really all depends on genetics, lifestyle choices, environmental factors, where you find yourself, stress, and all of that have a way of influencing menopause and the symptoms that come with it. So it's not a one size fits all. So menopause, that period of menopause is something that we should embrace as a second bloom, right? It's a profound time where renewal should occur, self-awareness, especially for we Black women. Right, we should be able to reclaim our narrative. At that point, we should stand tall. I have seen women who are in menopausal period and are thriving through it. Right, so it's something that we should embrace. It's something that we are going to go through. Right, so like I said, get small groups, small focus groups of women, and have conversations. Let this period or this transition, let it mark a shift, right, in our lives, as it's marking a shift in our reproductive life. Let it mark a shift in our lives in general. So it's a period where younger women should be able to look up to older women, because these ones are seen as people who are leaders, who are able to guide, who are able to give advice on several aspects of life. So pick up new hobbies if you really need to. Gardening is something that would always come to mind first for me. If you love to read, why not start up a reading club, a book club? It shouldn't be, it doesn't have to be something that is so big or out there. It could just be something really intimate. I have a friend who does something really intimate in her street. She just has health talks or conversations with women and stuff on her streets, just on her street. They just gather and have that talk once in a while. So it's something that women would look forward to, right? And it should be a period where um, platforms like this should erupt. That's why I'm super excited about what is going on. We're able to redefine what menopause is. We're able to remove that silence or that those myths that surround menopause. It's not a time where women should be covered up, but it's a time where women all over the world, all over Africa, should bloom, right? So I would always say you should take up pursuits that help provide clarity, allow women to pursue careers. You can decide at that point that you really want to change your career. Okay, I've been a doctor for quite a while. I'm retired right now. Maybe I want to go try out something else, or whatever sparks your interest. Whatever new passions, you could go learn fashion and designing. We're never too old to learn anything. So pick up a new hobby at that point and prioritize self-care. I talked about going to the spa, having your pedicure, having your me time. So that's personal time for you. Every other person should hang out. You should just take your time, have some form of meditation, relaxation, but prioritize yourself. Exercise is key. Exercise has a way of releasing happy hormones that help us in managing these periods. Then um, it's also very important to embrace menopause as an opportunity that counters stigma, right? And also for the modern African woman, this phase is something that should signify a powerful shift of becoming undistractable, crystalline, and influential in every community that an African woman finds herself. So I hope that this short discussion has been able to help us understand or understand menopause better, and gives us knowledge or empower us with knowledge that we can be able to go back and teach people in our community, go back and have conversations about menopause and help educate women so that we know that it's not a period where we should be covered up or hidden, but it's a period where we should embrace our femininity and have that as a second bloom. Thank you so much for having me today.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Gold. This is amazing. I have my questions. I have a lot of questions lined up. Thank you so much. This was really good. And I'm going to be selfish and ask my questions. I know that, there are other women who would also, benefit from whatever I ask. And then, we're also going to open the floor for more questions to come through. In the meantime, you can start dropping your questions in the chat box, so that, after Dr. Gold is done answering these questions, we can start taking the questions in the chat. So there's something you mentioned, this hormonal replacement therapy, which, and I like that you said that it's not all doom and gloom. So, yes, it comes with its, cons, but there's some pros as well. I just want to, and I'm sure
Mhm.
there are other women here who probably want to get a better understanding of it too. So at what point, like what how severe should your symptoms be before you even consider hormone, replacement therapy? Because the symptoms have to be that severe. But what classifies as severe symptoms, to even warrant such um, uh, therapy or, for you to take on something like that?
Okay, I can go ahead and answer your question. Am I correct?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So the decision to consider hormone replacement therapy, it all depends. So the severity of the symptoms, it all depends on what we refer to as being severe. So there are hot flushes that interrupt a person's sleep or interrupt their daily activities. Any symptoms really that interrupt your function. If whatever it is you're going through interrupts your daily function, your function is limited, we would refer to that as severe symptoms. That's why I mentioned that it's important to have that conversation with your healthcare practitioner, right? Then the doctor and the person and the woman involved would be able to come to a conclusion about how to go about this. So for some women who have severe symptoms, lifestyle changes can still help, right? Because we really have to balance the pros and cons with hormone replacement therapy. It's not something that is routinely gone into, right? So we would first consider other lifestyle changes and other non-hormonal replacement therapies that can be used before the last line. We would now say, okay, let's do a hormone replacement therapy.
Okay. And then there's also, thank you for that response. There's also something you mentioned about the sleep bit, right? Consistent sleep patterns. So in your presentation, there was stress on consistent sleep patterns. So it's not enough to get sleep. And I want you to stress on that a bit because I picked that up from your presentation. So
Mhm.
whatever sleep patterns, like it's important to create sleep patterns. Can you please expound on that a little bit? Why is that important? Especially, during this period.
Okay, so having to create a good sleep routine or a consistent sleep routine starts with, first of all, the first things you do. We have a biological, well, a sleep clock in our brain. So the circadian rhythm, you know that this is the time I go to bed, this is the time I wake up. For people who have been consistent in that time frame, it's because they've been going to bed at a particular time every day. So you decide that, okay, let's say I go to bed at 10 and I have to wake up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. So choose whatever time works for you. If it's 10, if it's 11. So once you pick the time, you're good with that, right? So we've sorted our time. Now the next step is the bedroom. The bedroom has to be dark, it has to be cool, it has to be aerated. The bed and the bedroom is for sleeping and intimacy. It's not for pressing phone and watching TV and pressing laptops. So all of that should away from the room. Yes, we have the habit of lying down and then we just pick a phone and we start pressing the phone. The light from the phone has a way of reducing the melatonin that your body produces, which is the sleep hormone. It reduces it and then you can't sleep anymore. So take your devices out of your room. Your TV shouldn't even be in your room in the first place. So your devices, everything out of the room. My husband does something very interesting. Because we use our phones for alarms. He keeps his phone so far away, which is very interesting. So it doesn't affect, it's not close to the bed in any way, right? It's so far away. So you have a cool room, a dark room, a well aerated room, right? Then you go to bed at 10 or you go to bed at 11. When you lie down, you see that I'm not sleeping. What's going on? Because it's not something you are used to, right? You get up from there. Maybe you've tried lying down for the next 20 minutes. Get up and take a walk around. Don't press your phone when you get up. Just get up and take a walk around. You can take some warm milk if you please, but nothing so much. Maybe a little water or play some music. You can decide to read a book as well. Okay, after that, you go back and try again. So, like I said, it takes about 21 days to build the habit. So you would notice that after some time, you start getting tired around that 10 p.m. It's almost 10 p.m. and your body is already tired because it realizes that this is the time this lady has to go to bed. So it starts signaling you that it's time for bed, right? And then your alarm rings every time at 6 a.m. or every time at 5 a.m. At the point you will notice that you start waking up 5 minutes to 5, maybe, or 5 minutes to 6, or just around that period. Even the days you turn off your alarm, you would suddenly wake up by that time because your body is so used to it. So that's you having to create that sleeping pattern. Avoid taking coffee at night. Avoid eating heavy meals about close to bedtime. So you shouldn't eat 3 hours before. You should eat at least 3 hours before bed, or yeah, give at least 3 hours after eating before you go to bed. Don't take a lot of liquid. Don't take caffeine close to bedtime. No alcohol close to bedtime, right? And all of that. So if you avoid all of that, then that should help build your sleep routine. And with time, just give it a few weeks, you'll be able to have a wonderful sleep routine that you can work with.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So back on still on sleep, you did mention that of course you need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep, right? So that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, does the 7 to 8 hours have to be like one time 7 to 8 hours? You said within 24 hours. Or can it be spread out? So, there's some people, depending on the types of jobs that they have, they might not be able to sleep all 7 or 8 hours, at a stretch. So is that also okay
Mhm.
for people to have, like, if it's 4 hours at night and maybe 3 hours during the day, or how does that work? Because there've also been different, I would say information out there that, not having, it's almost as if you need to have like a good stretch of sleep instead of it being broken into different pieces. So it would be great to hear your thoughts on that as well, and for anybody that it affects.
All right, thank you for that question. That's a very important question. So it's important to have the bulk of your sleep at night. It's important. That doesn't negate the fact that you can have some naps during the day. We'll usually say don't have more than 1 to 2 hours during the day, so you can have more sleep at night because that's the time when you need to rest. I understand that people's work schedule and those who work shifts and all of that have a way of affecting most of those people rarely would have a good sleep routine. So my advice to them is to pick up other lifestyle changes or lifestyle modifications that they can incorporate, right? If you can't get your sleep at that point because of the work you do, then ensure you take up some relaxation techniques, ensure you do exercise and diet, right? And all the rest of that. If your sleep is not going to be as routine or as it should be, it's all botched up because of work, then please embrace other aspects of lifestyle modifications that would help.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to open the floor for anyone who has questions to ask. If you have a question, please just raise your hand so that you can unmute yourself and ask. I see Indidi had her hand up. Indidi, please, you have the floor. Please go ahead and share your thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much for this engagement. I think it's spot on for women and ladies at this point. So, thank you for what you shared about the lifestyle modifications, which I think is very vital to, things happening today. But I'd like us to, can we share a bit about the food? I was listening to someone recently, and she was sharing about how we have foods for different ages and how we're encouraged. It's true, some of us at that point where you're cooking for the family, and so you want to, add up some things that you should probably be reducing on. So could we just share a bit about recommended foods? Because the body works as a system. What we take in is what we bring out. So I just wanted to know, could we have a bit about the food thing? What would you recommend as the food structure at this point? Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for that question. So with regards to food structure, we know that it's different for different age groups. What a baby would take and what an adult would take are two different things. But now you're referring to adults. Really, adults would be from the age of 19 up until, right, 100 and 100 plus. So it all falls within the same. So between the age of 19 to 60s, it all falls within what I have spoken about, all those meals. Um, I'll give you an example. When people get older, because of the non-communicable diseases like hypertension that come in, we preach about reduction in salt, right? So reducing the salt and all. And most people say, like you also mentioned this, you're cooking for the family. If I reduce salt, what happens to my children? There's a certain amount of sodium, which is salt, that we should take in. My dad had issues sometime back, early 2000s, and we had to discard salt from our diet. It was a bit difficult having to do that transition because you're used to eating something really tasty with salt and all, and next thing you're eating jollof rice and it's as if it's white rice you're chewing, right? We found it difficult, but we got used to it. We got very, because for years we now ate food without having to put salt. We used other forms of spices, you get, and a lot of crayfish and all in the food, and that really changed our taste buds. When I got married and I first spread food for my husband, he said, "What's going on?" And then I kept on telling myself, "You're no longer in your father's house, right? You really have to put salt in your meals at this point." But people ask me, how did you go through that period, seeing that you are not having salt in your diet? The truth is, most of what we eat has salt in it. You know, we go to buy foods, we go to buy snacks, and I'm looking around, I don't have any here. We don't read those contents at the back, those ingredients. If you take your time and read those labelings on the food, you will see that most of what we are consuming already has a lot of salt in it. It has a lot of sugar. We shouldn't take more than, is it between 16 to 25, I'm really not sure, grams of sugar for women in a day. But by the time you take a can of malt, you're already done with your sugar content for the day. And that is refined sugar. You have not even added the sugar that is coming from the rice you're going to eat for dinner. You've not added the sugar that came from your breakfast, right? So all those little things are important that we should take note of. So that's why when I mentioned whatever we eat, you eat in moderation. Then you can't really say that you should say this particular food for this particular age group. Here are certain things like you might need more nutrients when you're 65 and older or 60 and older because of the stress that older people go through. So they need more protein-rich foods, which they can get from seafoods and all those nuts. Calcium for women, especially, and vitamin D, because of the reduction in the estrogen and calcium. So we would need a little more foods that are rich in calcium. And then for older people, they will need more high fiber diets. I say this because when people get older, their motility, the transit time of foods from their mouth to their anus reduces. So food stays in longer than it will in a much younger person. So they need foods that are rich in fiber, which would help in moving foods faster through their digestive system, right? And it would also help prevent constipation for them. So basically, that's what it is about. But like I would always say, no food is bad and no food is good. But whatever you have to take, please do take in moderation. Moderation is key when it comes to diet.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gold, for that. Indeed, I'm not sure if you had joined at the time when Dr. Gold went through the foods that are good for this period for a woman who at the perimenopause stage or menopause stage or postmenopause. But if not, then I think you may have missed that part because there are certain foods that were recommended. We normally do share key takeouts after our sessions. So, if you missed it, it's something that we would share. I hope that, you've signed up and we have your email. We'll do share that with everyone who's on this call, as long as we have your email, your contact information. But thank you very much, Dr. Gold. And I think the question that Ndidi asked is critical because, if you're in a household with people, in different age groups, it becomes difficult, right? So you talked about like, red meats, not eating red meats, cutting it out, especially because, your risk of cardiovascular disease is higher, especially if you have a family history of, such diseases, right? So then if you're in a household where you have kids and, you're told that, oh, yeah, red meat is also good for children. So it means the kids will not eat the red meat. So I think that's probably also where indeed it's coming from. Like, how do you manage both, right? Because you want to make sure that, you're not cooking two different meals in a day, or, for different people in the family. So, um, yeah, so indeed, I understand your challenge, but I do also see where Dr. Gold was coming from because I also had experienced that in my family. So my parents, had to like reduce their salt intake, and for while I was living with my parents at the time, if my mom is cooking, there's really not that much salt in the food, and I got used to it. Really, I did get used to it, and I didn't like my salt, and I still don't like a lot of salt, right? And so I think that as a child, when you're growing up in a household where certain things are, there's certain shifts in how, in lifestyle, it affects you and affects your taste buds as well. When you get older, you now decide how you want to live, right? So right now, like even though I do eat salt, but it's really in moderation because it helps remind me that you know what, too much of it is not great, right? So I think it can also kind of work so that we're not stressing ourselves cooking different types of food for everyone in the family because it's going to be really stressful. Yeah. Thank you for that, and thank you indeed for your contribution. Does anyone else have any questions? People are quiet. I'm not seeing questions coming in, and I think maybe it's because they've gotten a lot of info. But I think Dr. Gold, something that I would like to ask, and I see Audrey's hand up. So maybe Audrey should go, and then I'll go after. Audrey, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gold. Thank you. As I said, I do presentations on menopause, so I was very glad to see that you've gone through almost everything that I've gone through. So thank you for that. I feel assured. But the other thing I wanted to say, I don't know if there's anybody on here who is actually going through menopause and working. One of the things that I recommend normally, which works a lot for people, is to have a lunchbox full of menopause goodies, I call it, because of the sweating and everything. So, like to have deodorant in there so you can go to your office bathroom and just freshen up a little bit. Have an ice pack, that you can put in a flannel that you can put at the back of your neck if you're working and you're starting to get hot. I don't know if people know about dry shampoo, but a lot of Africans plait their hair or have weaves. And when you're sweating and it's going into your hair as well, it's really, really uncomfortable. So just to have like a bit of shampoo, dilute it, and just put it through your hair, just try and freshen your hair up as well. And then come out and have a lipstick, have your red lipstick. When you go and freshen up, put your lipstick on, come out feeling refreshed because you can get really uncomfortable, you can get irritable, all the things that Dr. Gold went through. You can get that at home, but you can get that at work. And you want to be efficient throughout the day. So having those little goodies, and you get to know yourself. And even the going to bed as well. As soon as I get home, because I've gone through menopause, as soon as I get home, I put a flannel in the fridge. And when I get into bed, I put it on my forehead because I get so hot. So that actually cools me down and helps me to sleep. And it comes off and falls off, but it's okay. Be in the me time. The me time is really important as mothers. It's like we do everything for everybody apart from ourselves. So ring fence some time for yourself, put the children to bed, and just have your me time. Even if it's putting your feet in water and just sitting down and reading a book or something. So I just wanted to share that because for the people that I have spoken to, they come back with that menopause goodie going to the office and it really helps them. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Menopause goodies. I've never heard of that, but it actually sounds really, really good. And it's definitely something I am going to take with me when that time comes. Thank you so much for that, Audrey. It's
You're
amazing.
welcome.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. So I was going to ask Dr. Gold before Audrey's input. As you were going through your presentation, I kept thinking, how can we sensitize society this um, on this stage, right? That women experience because it's real, and I can't imagine a woman, going through having some of the most like challenging symptoms and still having responsibilities at home, um, having responsibilities in the workplace, and all of that. Like how can we sensitize society? Because, if it was full of women, I would say, oh yeah, people would understand. But it's not. So what is the reality? How do we move forward as women and even in our workspaces, how do we get our colleagues to understand what we're going through without making it seem as though we are playing the victim. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're the only ones that are going through every challenging thing in this world. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think I would like to hear your thoughts on that because it's critical that the conversation is had in society is quite clear on this experience.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that up. When I started, I said menopause is a period that most people have shrouded in silence, right? So we really need to break that silence. We have to talk about it, have open conversations about it. Whatever it is we've discussed here, go back and normalize menopause. We really have to normalize it. We shouldn't take the back seat when it comes to conversations. Bring it up at workplaces. Be the first person to pioneer a menopause friendly environment, right, in the workplace. If it's not something that has been done wherever you find yourself, then champion it. Why not just champion it and take it, create something about it? These days we put, you say I educated children, and instead of that, you say I provided a framework for something, something. So why not do that when it comes to menopause? Be the one to provide that framework for a menopause-friendly environment. Have conversations. People can decide wherever you work to have a group, right? To have these conversations. First of all, that's how it has to start. Then support groups could also, support networks like Obaasema Salon, right? Could also come in play for things like this. Mentorship programs are also very important. I mentioned having to learn from other people's experiences. So that's where mentorship comes into. Have to talk to younger people about it so that when they get to that point, they are not buried under myths and buried in silence with regards to that. And this is something that society should hear. So it shouldn't just end here, it should go to the media. Wherever you find yourself, if you're having to talk in the news or you're having to have been called, put it up on your status, put it up in your LinkedIn, wherever it is, have the conversation. But it's something that you talk about that people hear about. If you don't talk about it, then it's not heard. If you don't break the silence, it remains quiet. When you come to the hospitals or go to your healthcare professionals, you hear these discussions. It shouldn't end there. Take it up, right? So it's all the onus lies on us as women to fight this fight and advocate for menopause wherever we find ourselves. It's a natural process that everybody is going to go through. Even men go through andropause at a certain point in their life, right? But maybe not as pronounced as we do. So it's something that we should champion wherever we find ourselves. We are currently 15 on the call. Why not just go on wherever at your workplaces and champion conversations on menopause? Today, you can decide to put up on your LinkedIn or your WhatsApp status or Instagram, wherever you find yourself. Just break that silence, really, and let people hear about it. When we normalize this conversation on menopause, then it becomes easier you get, for us to go through this period and not have to be stigmatized because we are going through menopause.
That's a great one. That's a really good one. Thank you. Thank you for that. I know that, so like you said, having these conversations in our individual personal spaces normalizes it, but actually normalizing menopause as a conversation. And I think that's the key word, right? We need to normalize it. It should be almost like, having a period. I mean, I think menstruation is also has a long way to go because we're still going through that process where we're trying to normalize that as well, as a conversation. But I do believe that, and I agree with you that menopause should be one of those where we're normalizing it so that some of these challenges can also be brought to the light. Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? I am done with my questions and I have so much that I'm taking with me. If you have any questions, please go ahead and speak or raise your hand so you can speak. If not, I believe that we've had a really, really good informational session with Dr. Gold. Thank you so much for your time. If you're on this call and you're interested in receiving our key takeouts, we would share like the key elements of Dr. Gold's presentation with you. Please drop your email address in the chat box and we're going to send it to you. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We do this every other month, and so our next session is going to be in January. And if you would like to get more details about or information about our sessions, please drop your email so we can add you to our newsletter list, and you can receive more information about subsequent events that we're having. But I know that I am going away into December very full, and I'm starting my 2026 with the knowledge that I have gathered from this community and this session, and I hope that you have as well. Let's end the year on a great note and start the new year even more fabulous, more knowledgeable. And please, whatever information that you have gotten, whatever you learn from this session, please pass it on to another woman, so that we're spreading the awareness and creating a community where more and more women are embracing who they are and growing into, their full bloom, I would say. So thank you, Dr. Gold. This has been incredible. We hope that we can have you again on in, our future sessions. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who has been on the call, has stayed to the end. We're here and, please share your experiences with us. And thank you once again. Have a great day and, a great week, rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.